All right, let's dive in. If you're looking to get up to speed quickly, the kind of learner who wants that efficient path to competence, well, today's deep dive is really laser focused on that. We're exploring a concept that seems to promise, well, pretty significant results from what sounds like minimal effort.
That's exactly right. Our goal here is to pull out the really practical insights from this idea called the power of the tiny habit.
Mm.
Uh, the title itself, it suggests a kind of ultimate efficiency hack, doesn't it? Getting to big goals, not through sheer force, but through these incredibly small, manageable steps, systematic change.
Okay, yeah, that sounds appealing, definitely. But I guess the big question that pops up right away is, what does putting tiny and power together actually tell us about learning fast and effectively? I get the tiny part means easy or easier, but how do we know these little tiny actions aren't just, well, wasted motion? Does just being consistent automatically lead to success?
Yeah, that's a fair question. What's really interesting, I think, is how tiny immediately tackles that feeling of being overwhelmed, which, like you hinted, can stop learners cold. But the sources suggest the power isn't just from random consistency. It comes from a specific technique, a mechanism called anchoring.
Okay, let's stick with the tiny part for just a second first, because that seems key to getting started at all, avoiding that paralysis. If the idea emphasizes tiny, it sounds like the barrier to entry, that first step, is just super low, almost non-existent, so it's not intimidating. Like, it's the difference between saying, I'm going to write this whole research paper versus, I don't know, I'll write just one sentence right after I pour my coffee.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And the source material is pretty clear. A successful tiny habit should need almost zero motivation to actually do. It taps into something called behavior momentum. You're not fighting to boost your motivation. You're just making the ability part so incredibly low that the behavior just happens almost automatically. And if the effort is that tiny, you get this crucial win every single day. You don't miss. Zero misses. That's huge for rapid learning, You keep the chain going.
Right, okay. Now, connecting this back to actually applying knowledge, maybe something complex like getting through dense research. How does that anchoring thing you mentioned fit in? How do you use this power idea to absorb information quickly?
Okay. So the power comes from linking that tiny action predictably to something you already do. That's the anchor. It ensures the small action actually builds up, giving you those compounding returns. For instance, the sources might suggest something like, instead of trying to block out 2 hours for reading, which can feel huge, you decide, okay, after I close my main email app, that's your anchor, I will immediately summarize one key paragraph from my research. That's the tiny habit.
Ah, okay. So the power isn't just that the end result might be big, but that the method for staying consistent is almost built in. It kind of removes relying on motivation, which we all know can be unreliable.
Precisely, yeah. And if you look at the bigger picture, the sources often talk about a simple model for behavior. B equals MAP. Behavior needs motivation, ability, and a prompt. The tiny habit approach cleverly gets around the M, the motivation problem, by focusing everything on maximizing A, the ability making the action almost effortless. Then that minimal effort tied reliably to the P, the prompt or anchor. Well, that's what leads to this surprisingly big outcome. It's basically structural efficiency, perfect for the learner who really values speed.
So wrapping this up, what's the core takeaway for you listening? It seems this tiny habit idea offers a framework, a really potent one actually, where you can absorb or apply high-impact knowledge through steps that feel completely manageable, not scary. And the key seems to be stacking these tiny actions onto routines you already have in place. It sounds like a shortcut to being effective without hitting that wall of burnout, just by making sure you nail those foundational steps every single time. Zero misses.
Yeah, and maybe a final thought, connecting this directly to applying knowledge fast. Thinking about this whole tiny habit idea raises a really practical question for you to consider, maybe even right now. What is the absolute smallest action, something taking, say, less than 30 seconds, that you could take today to immediately use a piece of knowledge you already have? Think minimal effort, but maximum strategic placement. What's that tiny anchor point for you?